It all started on a Tuesday. Not just any Tuesday, but one of those days that feels so ordinary, you almost forget it's happening at all. A perfectly normal, boring Tuesday. The kind where nothing ever seems to change, and you expect everything to stay exactly the same. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and I was walking home from school, kicking a pebble along the sidewalk. My backpack felt heavy, but my mind was light, drifting from one thought to the next. My name is Leo, and I'm 12. I live in a small town where everyone knows everyone and nothing ever seems to happen. Nothing exciting ever happens in my town, especially not on a Tuesday. It's the kind of place where the biggest news is when someone gets a new mailbox. I was thinking about dinner and video games, just the usual stuff. Maybe I'd beat my high score tonight, or maybe Mom would make spaghetti. The air was warm, the smell of cut grass everywhere. Lawnmowers buzzed in the distance and the world felt safe and familiar. Everything felt sleepy and safe, until a chill crept up my spine. It was like the world paused for a second and I was the only one who noticed. I stopped, looked around. The street was empty, the houses quiet, even the birds seemed to have gone silent. Suddenly I felt like I was being watched. That prickly, someone's behind you feeling. My heart started to beat a little faster. I spun around, nothing. Just the empty street and the sun. No footsteps, no shadows, just me and my imagination. I tried to shake it off. "You're just being weird, Leo," I muttered. Maybe I was just tired, or maybe I'd watched too many scary movies. But the feeling stuck, every rustle and shadow making me jump. Even the wind in the trees sounded suspicious. I told myself it was just my imagination, maybe those scary comics I'd been reading. My mind loved to play tricks on me, especially when I was alone. But deep down, I knew this was different. This felt real, like something was out there, just beyond what I could see. My house was at the end of the block. I started to run, my feet pounded the pavement and my breath came quicker. The feeling grew stronger with every step. I didn't look back, I just wanted to get home, to somewhere safe. I burst through my front door, slammed it shut, and leaned against it, panting. My heart was racing and my hands were shaking, the feeling vanished. I told myself it was nothing, if only I'd known how wrong I was. That Tuesday was about to become anything but normal. The next day, I had to go to the library for a history report. The only library in town is the old one on Elm Street, a creepy stone building that looks more like a haunted castle. Most kids avoid it, but I had no choice. Inside, the air was cool and smelled like old paper. Rows of towering bookshelves made dark, narrow canyons. The sunlight barely made it through the dusty windows. The old librarian at the desk barely looked up as I walked in. I found the history section in the darkest corner, under a flickering bulb. That creepy, watched feeling from yesterday came back, even stronger. I tried to ignore it, and pulled some heavy books from the shelf. As I scanned the table of contents, I heard a soft shuffling sound in the next aisle. "Hello?" I whispered. No answer, just silence. I tried to focus, but my eyes kept darting to the shadows. I sat at a small table trying to read, but the flickering light made the words dance. Out of the corner of my eye I saw a shadow, tall, thin, gliding silently behind a bookshelf. My heart leaped. I slammed the book shut. "Who's there?" Silence. Maybe it was a prank, I thought, or just my imagination. I stood up, peered down the aisle, nothing but rows of silent books. I tried to sit back down, but every sound made me jump. A cold draft swept through, smelling of damp earth. I felt a deep, ancient sadness in the air. I'd had enough. I grabbed my things and hurried out. As I passed the end of the aisle, I glanced down. Nothing. But on the floor I saw a small, wet footprint. Long, narrow, already fading. It looked like it was made by a bare foot, and there was only one. I left the library as fast as I could. The feeling of being watched followed me all the way out. I told myself it was just nerves, but I knew better. I checked out the books and rushed outside, desperate for sunlight. The spooky feeling faded, but I couldn't shake the memory of the shadow and the footprint. My mom was supposed to pick me up, but she was running late, so I walked home. Every shadow on the sidewalk made me nervous. When I reached my house, I saw my mom's car in the driveway. Relief. I opened the back door to toss in my backpack. "Mom, you'll never believe..." I stopped. The car was empty. She wasn't home yet. I sighed and tossed my backpack in. Then in the rearview mirror I saw a face, pale, blurry, with empty black eyes and a mouth open in a silent scream. It vanished in an instant. I stumbled back, heart pounding, staring at the empty back seat. Nothing there, but I knew what I'd seen. It was real, and it had been in my mom's car. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes I saw that face. My room felt full of menacing shadows. I tried to tell my parents, but they just smiled and said I had an overactive imagination. I was alone with this. In the deep quiet of the night, it started, a soft whispering sound like wind through dry leaves. But there was no wind. The whispering came from the corner near my closet. I couldn't make out words, just a faint hissing sound. I wanted to scream, but I was frozen in bed. The whispering grew louder, closer, like someone telling a terrible secret. I squeezed my eyes shut, but the sound slithered into my ears. I pulled the pillow over my head, but the whispering was still there, as if it was inside my own head. It went on for what felt like hours. I lay trembling until dawn, when the whispering finally faded. I was a zombie at school the next day, barely hearing a word. My friend Sam joked, "You look like you've seen a ghost." I just shook my head. I dreaded the sun going down. At home, I tried to ghost-proof my room. Closet shut, dresser pushed in front, lights blazing. I sat on my bed pretending to do homework, but my eyes kept scanning the room. As darkness fell, the house grew quiet. For a long time, nothing happened. Maybe it was over, I hoped. Then I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from my window on the second floor. The oak tree's branches couldn't reach that high. I froze, blood turning to ice. The tapping was soft but persistent, right on the other side of the glass. I turned toward the window, curtains drawn. I could hear the tapping clear as day. Someone, or something, was outside, 2 stories up, asking to be let in. I wanted to scream, but the sound was stuck in my throat. The third night was the worst. I hadn't slept in days. I stuck close to my parents, but they just thought I was sick. That night I left all the lights on and sat on my bed, waiting. For a while nothing happened. I started to relax. I had to use the bathroom, so I tiptoed across the hall, leaving the door open. I washed my hands, eyes down, afraid to look up. But you always look up. I raised my head and saw my reflection, just me. I exhaled, then my reflection flickered. For a split second, the ghost's face stared back, long black hair, empty eyes, gaping mouth. My reflection smiled, but the ghost's face didn't. It just stared. Then my reflection raised its hand and waved. I screamed, stumbled back and ran to my room, slamming the door. My parents came running, but I couldn't explain. They checked the bathroom, nothing there. I knew I was on my own. I couldn't take it anymore. Every night, the fear grew worse, and I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. My heart pounded every time I heard a creak or saw a shadow move. I knew I had to do something, anything, to make it stop. The next day, I stayed home sick. I told my mom I had a stomachache, but really, I just needed a break from pretending everything was normal. As soon as my mom left for work, I spread the library books out on the living room floor, determined to find answers. I felt a strange mix of dread and hope as I flipped through the pages. I wasn't looking for history facts. I was searching for anything about ghosts or hauntings, desperate for a clue. I needed to know what I was dealing with and if there was any way to fight back. Most of it was boring, just old stories and legends. But then I found a story in the oldest, dustiest book. My hands shook as I read the faded words. A girl named Eleanor disappeared from the library 100 years ago. There was even a photograph of her, looking out from the past with sad eyes. She loved books, spent all her time in the library, and vanished from the history section on a rainy day. The story said no one ever found her, and some believed her spirit never left. The description matched the ghost. Long dark hair, white dress. My mind raced as I realized I'd seen her, just like in the story. It had to be her. The pieces were finally starting to fit together, and I felt a chill run down my spine. The book didn't say how to get rid of a ghost, but maybe she wasn't trying to hurt me. Maybe she was reaching out for help, not revenge. Maybe she was just lost. Maybe she needed someone to listen, someone to understand her story. The legend said she vanished on a rainy day. I wondered if the weather had something to do with her disappearance, and maybe her return. I looked outside. The sky was gray, about to rain. The air felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. Maybe that was the key. Maybe the rain was the connection between our worlds, the thing that could set her free. I had to take her back. I couldn't let fear stop me anymore. I had to be brave for both of us. I gathered the books, put on my raincoat, and got ready. My hands trembled, but I knew what I had to do. I left a note for my mom and slipped out the back door, hoping she wouldn't worry. I didn't want her to know how scared I really was. I was terrified, but I had to try. The rain started to fall, cold and steady, as if the world itself was watching. I headed for the library, clutching the books to my chest, hoping with all my heart that I could set her free, and maybe finally set myself free too. Rain fell in relentless sheets as I reached the library, each drop echoing the heaviness in my chest. The world felt muffled, as if the storm had pressed pause on everything except my racing thoughts. The doors were locked tight. Water leak, the sign read in shaky handwriting. My heart sank, disappointment mixing with worry. I'd come all this way, desperate for answers, and now the place I needed most was sealed off by something as ordinary as a leak. How could I help her if I couldn't even get inside? The rain soaked through my coat, but it was the sense of helplessness that chilled me most. Suddenly the old librarian appeared, almost as if conjured by my need, holding a black umbrella that seemed to swallow the light around her. "Looking for a book, dear?" she asked, her voice gentle but knowing, as if she already understood why I was there. I stammered, trying to explain about the closed doors and the urgency in my heart. She smiled thinly, her eyes glinting with secrets. "The history section always gets flooded when it rains," she said, as if that explained everything. Her words seemed to carry a weight beyond the weather. Suddenly it clicked. The wet footprint I'd seen before, the persistent smell of damp earth that clung to my clothes after every visit. It was as if the library itself was trying to tell me something. I lowered my voice barely above a whisper. "I think I brought something home from here, something I can't explain. Something that doesn't belong to me." The librarian's smile faded, her face growing serious. "Sometimes things follow you," she said softly. "They get lonely, you know, especially here." With trembling hands, she reached into her coat and handed me a small, faded photograph, its edges worn smooth by time. The image was haunting. A girl with long dark hair and eyes full of sorrow standing in front of the library in a white dress. "Eleanor," the librarian whispered, as if saying her name might summon her. "She just wants a friend," the librarian said, her voice barely more than a breath. "She's been waiting a long, long time. She thinks you're her friend now," she added, her words sending a chill down my spine. The photograph felt heavier in my hands. My hands trembled as I stared at the photo, the edges digging into my skin. I felt a strange connection, as if Eleanor's sadness was reaching out to me through the years. Then, as I looked closer, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A shadowy figure in the background, half hidden in the library's gloom, almost blending into the darkness. A small figure, a boy. His outline was faint, but there was something achingly familiar about him, as if I'd seen him in a dream. With a jolt, the truth hit me. I was in the 100-year-old photograph, standing right behind the ghost. My heart pounded in my ears. I understood now, the past and present were tangled together, and I was part of the story. Eleanor wasn't the only one lost in the library's shadows. There were others, echoes of people searching for something, or someone to bring them home. And maybe, just maybe, if I faced the truth and reached out, I could help us both find our way home, out of the shadows and into the light.